Welcome to Tikvah Radio Show, The Sound of Hope. I'm Liliana Inez, your host. Someone once said that God speaks to people in different ways. Did you ever have dreams, visions, or a special experience in which you felt God was speaking to you? The Torah tells us that Abraham, Jacob, and many others heard and experienced God. Does Adonai speak to people like that nowadays? On Tikvah Radio, we interview people who have had an encounter with the God of Israel, a special experience. Some have even had personal miracles, and all have found the Messiah of Israel. Stay tuned to Tikvah Radio Show and hear an amazing story of someone who was encountered by God. Can you believe that God can use the blowing of the shofar to bless people today? When Rabbi Michael Seidler blows his shofar, miracles take place. Michael has seen the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob bring healing emotionally, physically, and even in relationships to many people throughout the nations. Rabbi Michael Seidler is also an author of many books, including Why Israel is Supernatural. Welcome with me, Rabbi Michael Seidler, speaking to us from Jerusalem. Welcome to Tikvah Radio Show, Michael. We're so glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, Liliana. It's a blessing to be here and looking forward to what the Lord has got in store for all of us and what He wants to accomplish today.
All right. So, Rabbi Michael, we are so happy to have you, and you are speaking from the beautiful land of Israel, and I'm thinking that you're in the Galilee. Is that correct?
No, I'm currently right now in Jerusalem.
All right.
In the city of the Greek King.
Awesome. So that is a very precious city for us. And Rabbi Michael, your parents were both Jewish, and you were raised in a Reformed Jewish home. What was that like for you as a young boy?
It was very good. I enjoyed my upbringing and all my relatives and celebrating the feast days and being able to go on Friday nights to Shabbat and Saturday school. On Saturdays, they had Saturday school, so I'd be learning about the Bible and we'd be doing different projects. And I studied with my synagogue all the way up into my youth until I was 15 years old. So I was involved with the youth group. We did different trips and learned about different things and had a good time. And synagogue was pretty much my life. I had friends outside of that. In fact, the neighborhood I lived in was primarily Protestant and Catholic. And my Jewish synagogue were on the other side of town. So I would visit with them too, but it was kind of back and forth with both communities.
That's interesting that a lot of your neighborhood was not Jewish. So what was that like for you? Did you have any interesting experiences as a young boy?
I did. Being the fact that it was a Protestant and Catholic community and no Jews whatsoever, to my knowledge, at least in my block, and about 8 years of age, I had a surrogate British aunt that would take care of me when I would come home from school, and she would sometimes give me crumpets and tea and different kinds of things, and told me, different stories about England. And her husband worked for an oil company in Egypt, so he was back and forth from Egypt to the United States, and so she was my surrogate aunt. I enjoyed that, and my friends in my neighborhood, I was close to them. And then one day, I came home and confronted my friends and wanted to play with them, and one of them had a yellow broomstick in his hands, and he was slamming it down in the middle of me, and I told Jesus that I was a Jew. apparently they had learned that in their religious instructions that day or something. And I ran home crying, not even knowing, what they meant or anything, because I never heard of it. And certainly in the synagogue we didn't talk about Jesus, so I really was kind of shocked by what took place, and these were my friends. And after that, very strange thing happened, Liliana, which to this day I can't explain, except just to tell you. Every time the name Jesus was mentioned from that point on, at 8 years of age, I would smell baby's vomit. Very strong. And it was a horrible smell. And even when I knew I was in a Jesus home, in a Christian home, I would smell that smell. So it was a big turnoff to be around anything that had to do with Jesus, for the most part.
Wow, that's really weird. Yeah, and that was a super negative situation. So that was a bad experience of really anti-Semitism. What did God mean to you at this age? Did God mean anything to you? Was he real to you?
To me, the image that I had of him was like a big grandfather type with a long white beard, and I could sit on his lap, on his throne, kind of kingly, but yet very fatherly. And so when I would pray, I didn't, for the most part, pray any kind of, Hebrew rote prayers, though I knew those. I would just talk to him and basically say, God, this or that or whatever. And those were the kind of conversations I had with him. And interestingly enough, Liliana, is a Christian prayer that's pretty common. I don't know how common it is in Jewish households, but my mother would be on my bed, and I would kneel down at my bed even as a little boy. And where I learned these prayers from, I don't know. To this day, I can't tell you, but I would say, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. God bless my mother, my father, and so on. But where I was taught that, for the most part, I think I'm led to believe that's a Christian prayer.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
That's what I used to pray.
That's interesting.
My mother would sit on the bed and listen to me, pray my prayer.
Wow. That's interesting. So they taught you that prayer, or you picked it up from somewhere else, or you don't know?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know if my mother taught it to me, or I learned it somewhere, or learned it in school. Because back then, school, they didn't ban prayer, so maybe I learned it in school. I don't remember.
Wow.
I remember I would pray it every night, and she would always sit on the bed to listen to me pray my prayers.
Wow, that's really interesting. So what's really neat is that you were having conversations with God. I mean, it wasn't super elaborate or anything, but you were comfortable with being able to talk to him, approach him. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah, that's good.
And as I said, the community was really Protestant and Catholic, but all Protestant Catholic, but I just had this kind of relationship. Also, I don't know if it's common also in the Reformed communities, Reformed sect, but parents would have stockings, hung up on our, fireplace mantelpiece, and also we would have what was called a Hanukkah bush, which, basically a Christmas tree.
Right.
And other kinds of decorations like dreidels and, Jewish stars and stuff on it. But it was what they called the Hanukkah bush.
Right.
And so I was exposed to both Christmas and Hanukkah, and exposed to, both Easter and Passover. And even though that smell, when the name Jesus was mentioned, would arrive, and I would smell it, physically smell it, I still found myself to be attracted for some reason, though I don't know why, to Christmas and to the Christmas stories. And of course, at that age, young age, Santa Claus and, snowman and, all that kind of stuff. But also also the reality of the baby Jesus and all that, even though I was affected by it, as I told you, with the discrimination.
So as far as religious education in your synagogue, how far did you go with that? Did you go regular to synagogue, and can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Just up until 15 years of age, as I said, they had something which I don't know if they had this in all Reformed synagogues or in the sect itself, but ours they did. They had a communion, or it was basic communion you would go through at 15 years of age. I don't even recall exactly what it was all about. But prior to that, it was a lot of Bible stories, as I grew up, and they'd be reading from Torah, or they'd be reading from interpretation of Torah, like stories which I found out later weren't true, where Abraham was in his father's idol shop, and supposedly the idols had a fight. And what it was is he was playing with the idols, and he broke them all, and he told his father, that the idols had a fight because they were fighting over who was the best one or whatever, and that's the reason why his idols were all smashed up in his workshop. And these stories are not true. And
Yeah.
so I have a mixture of Torah and mixture of Tanakh, along with the legends, if you will, or myths that were mixed in. Where the teachers got these from, I don't know, but this is what I remember. And then this was reformed, and my synagogue was very, free and liberal. So that was the kind of upbringing I had. Interesting, though, when I was growing up, again, little at 8 years of age, or maybe younger, I can't remember, watching The Little Rascals, which was a black and white television program that was produced and put out every week as a serial with various different children that were getting into trouble and that were, playing hooky, they call it, but for those that don't know what that means, skipping school instead of going to school, and
Right.
tricks on the teacher and different things.
Yeah.
And one of the segments that I saw was they were, again, skipping school, and these children were hiding out in the woods. And this was very strange. There were black people that were getting baptized in a stream that was nearby, and they were all dressed in white, including little white hats. And afterwards, they were jumping up and down and shouting hallelujah, and of course, the kids thought they were ghosts and got scared, and ran back to the school. But something happened. A plant of a seed from the Lord, it had to be, that someday this little Jewish boy wanted to be baptized in a stream.
Wow. Just from that little part in that program. That's really interesting.
Yep.
Wow. You picked up that was something really important. That's really
It
interesting.
really stuck with me all my entire life until I became a born-again believer.
Wow. Well, let's find out how that happened. So now you did your bar mitzvah at 13, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And then what happened after that? Did you continue, or did things change for you?
Well, in bar mitzvah, of course, it's a big elaborate, ceremony and an elaborate reception afterwards, and it's like a wedding. And then after that, I continued, as I said, until I was 15 with the synagogue and with the community, especially with the youth group, as I was becoming a teenager. And then as getting into high school, I drifted away. My parents were no longer living near the synagogue. We had moved away. And so growing up as a teenager and young adult, I didn't have any influence of Judaism per se over me, except for from my family and getting together for holidays and things like that. So at that point in high school, I started to get involved in the occult and started to find out about being a witch. And
wow, that's pretty radical. Wow. So your Jewish religious training stopped, your family stopped going to synagogue, and then you started going into, what were your thoughts? Do you feel like you were hungry for something spiritual and you wanted something you could experience?
Yes, that's exactly correct. And the witchcraft was very appealing because it was affording me the ability to be able to move in a power that I never did before. It was affording me an ability to be able to get wisdom and training that would be different than I was, familiar with. And all of it just became very enticing. I got involved with a coven and, involved with the other witches and was being discipled to learn the various different crafts.
Wow.
So the different areas of witchcraft, like tarot card reading and crystal ball reading and, different things. And celebrating the witches' holidays, and which sometimes correspond with Jewish holidays, interestingly enough, because they're following the moon phases also.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Well, we're actually coming up to one of those holidays in Halloween. Maybe some people think, oh, that's just kind of a fun thing, but that is one of their holidays, isn't it?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
And it follows along in the same form, it's not the same exact time frame, but close to Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles.
Wow.
Similar types of things. So the autumn, celebrations and, that kind of thing.
They're kind of copying some things, but they're following the wrong person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Wow.
And I wasn't a Satanist. That was a totally different thing. This was witchcraft, and they called it white witchcraft as compared to black witchcraft, as compared to sorcery, as compared to Satanism. So various different aspects of the occult, all following the same leader, all following the same boss, if you will, behind that, who was Satan.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that, and you were worshiping the great horned god of nature, you didn't put two and two together. Duh. Great horned god, come on, put the two together. But no.
Right.
And the goddess of the moon, and again, Isis, or whatever you want to call it, all stemming from the demonic, and all for the purposes of being able to win the souls of those people for his kingdom instead of for the kingdom of heaven.
So you were recruiting as well for that. So as far as you were concerned, was the God that you knew growing up the same God that you thought you were following through these religions?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It was a mixture. Here I had the great horned god of nature and the goddess of the moon, but in the back of my mind was the fact that I had a relationship with Hashem, with Elohim, and yet he wasn't being cried out to. He wasn't being addressed anymore by Michael. This was being put to the background and put on a shelf, so to speak, and everything else was taking place in the witchcraft understanding. And then later on, don't ask me how, it just transpired to happen this way, that I had cousins that were involved in Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, which is a form of Japanese Buddhism, and they don't worship a little fat. And for the Buddhists that do that, I ask you, forgive me, all kidding aside. But they basically have a scroll that has this ancient Japanese Sanskrit written on it, and you're given a personal scroll which represents a mirror of your life, and by chanting over and over again and also going to a prayer book of ancient Japanese Sanskrit, you get closer to the Godhead. So you get closer to God, you get closer to heaven. So from witchcraft, after many years, jumped out of that, never got into a coven, was being groomed to get into a coven. These were serious people, but never got into it, and then somehow got transitioned to being into Buddhism, into this,
Wow.
this Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, which is very popular to this day in Hollywood. They call it by its initials, NSA, Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, and they have a special universal chant that they put out and put prayer beads, and you get this pop.
Wow. So you went from the witchcraft to the Buddhism, and talking about that, you went into witchcraft right after when you were in high school, and then you were actually being groomed to be in a coven, but you didn't go that route. You went into Buddhism. And what happened next? I know there was something interesting later on where you went to another country.
And there was a community. At that time I was living in New York City, and there was a community of these. And prior to that, when I was in Westchester County, there was also a group. And so we would be together and, have gatherings together, and then we would go out and do actual evangelizing of this particular, religion, and try to get others to come and join us, and whatever.
Same thing like the witchcraft too, huh? You were trying to get some followers.
Yeah. Same. And still working for the same boss, but not realizing it. It was hidden.
Yeah. Right.
The light and hidden in the darkness at the same time. And so then later on, was a businessman and very, very involved in business, and so my life was not at all following the ways of the Lord or following anything that Torah teaches. For me, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll from high school on. And certainly the witchcraft also promoted that, and even to some extent the Buddhism did, although that was more of a squeaky clean kind of lifestyle you're supposed to live, but I didn't. And, was just as disobedient and rebellious even at that time because of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right.
And then I was moderately successful in business. I was an entrepreneur, and my parents were very successful. My family on a whole was very successful. There were some millionaires in the family line, current family line, and like in this generation. And so consequently, I was led more to be a businessman myself, and tried many different businesses, and was successful in some, and not as successful in others. And then finally had a Peruvian girlfriend, and we traveled to Peru. I was still a hippie. I wasn't doing all these businesses at that point, and I was in Peru just to enjoy Peru, not to be in business or anything like that. And it was the particular week after the time that I was there with her that was celebrating the week of the saint. We know that as Easter, and we know that as Resurrection Week, or Resurrection Week. And that time of celebration there was very solemn, Catholic and mysticism mixed in with paganism in Peru, and so it was a very solemn time. No Easter bunnies, eggs, none of that. And they were playing movies, and she wanted to go to a movie, and all of them were in Spanish, and I was just learning Spanish, and I did not want to go. And one of them was Jesus Christ Superstar, and that was with Spanish subtitles, so they were doing it in English. So I sort of, kind of was interested and went, but not really too excited about it.
Yeah.
And while I was watching the movie, God can use anything. He can use a donkey. And so,
yeah, he does.
and so he used the movie, as strange as it might sound, to deliver me from that anti-Semitic attack of the demonic, with me smelling baby's vomit from 8 years of age, all the way up to 21 years of age.
He used that movie to deliver you? In other words, you never had that experience anymore after that?
In fact, I was able to sing Jesus Christ Superstar and not have any odor.
Wow. That's amazing.
So he freed me up. And he delivered me. I had a very strong desire to know him and to have a closer relationship with him, though I didn't know what that meant, and nobody was discipling me. And I was in Peru. So, strangely enough, I adopted some of the saints of Peru because that's all I knew. St. Rose of Lima, a woman who was a patron saint in Lima, Peru, and St. Martin, the only black saint, to my knowledge, that's in the hierarchy of the sainthood of the Catholic religion. And he was also established in Lima. And he was St. Martin of the poorest of this particular section of Lima, and had many miraculous experiences with God, with Jesus, and so he was my man. And so I was in Peru for quite a while, 8 months, and then came back to the U.S., and there, 5 years, basically was praying to these saints, praying to Jesus, praying to God. I was a mess. And
so the Buddhism went out the window when you went to see Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes.
Wow.
Out the window.
That's amazing.
Yes. Everything was negated at that point.
Wow.
But it wasn't until 5 years later, as a businessman, and having various different businesses, as I said, that I met a man who was a businessman and also the president of a True Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International chapter in Westchester County, where I lived. And he was based in White Plains, in New York. And he invited me to come to a dinner, and I didn't want to, wasn't interested, even though I was praying to Jesus, even though I was praying to these saints, this Jewish boy. I did not want to go to this dinner. And I don't know why, but I was resistant. And finally, he called me at the last minute. He said, "Are you coming to the dinner?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "Well, it's my invitation." Well, that was the key. And I said, "Okay, I'll come." He invited me to come to the dinner. And I went, and he had heard prior to this the story that you're hearing now, and your listeners are hearing right now. And so he asked me to stand in front of 150 people and to be public speaking for the first time in my life, and to tell them my story that I'm telling you now. And I said, "But I'm not born again," because I knew he was, and I knew that that was something that was based upon this, dinner. And somebody overheard it, and they said, they didn't hear me saying I wasn't born again, but they overheard me talking about doing this story. That they didn't call it a testimony. I would have called it a story back then. Now I would call it a testimony. And he said, "You never know who it's going to affect," and whatever, so I agreed. And I basically said the same things that you heard today to these 150 people. And then I sat down, and they, were not a clue as to whether or not I was a believer or not.
Uh-huh.
But then a guy got up to speak from England after the dinner to talk about his relationship with the Lord and how he came to the Lord. Well, of all things, this Jewish boy was hearing about a man who was a pig herder in England, in rural England, and that the pigs were used by God to bring him to Jesus.
Wow.
So I wasn't interested at all. And afterwards, a Jewish man named Joe Cohn, came up to me after the dinner and he said, "That was a nice story that you told, but do you know Jesus?" And I said, "No." And he took me outside in the parking lot because they were leaving, and he proceeded for an hour to tell me his testimony of being an alcoholic, of being a gambler, a drug user, and how he came to know Jesus. And then he asked me if I wanted to accept Jesus as my Messiah, as my Mashiach. And I said, yes. And that night I renounced many things that I had carried in my pocket from witchcraft days that I never gave up. These amulets, these good luck charms, and took them and threw them away. Even a little Buddha or something, I don't know.
Nobody told you to do that. You just felt that you should do that.
Yeah.
And you just kind of knew that wasn't from God. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also I had a foul mouth on me, and I just, everything was, with curses. So even when I was complimenting someone, I was with curses. It was just my upbringing as a hippie, if you will. And it was just the way everybody talked in my peer group. And I just didn't have any more. They were gone. All the curse words just got left out of my brain.
You didn't even think about it. Wow.
And I didn't speak like that anymore.
Wow. So you feel like that Jesus took that away from you, huh?
Completely.
Wow.
So I immediately came home that night at 2 o'clock in the morning or so, I remember, to my wife, my Peruvian wife, because my girlfriend I married. And we were the, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We were wild party animals. And I come home talking about Jesus, and it was the last thing she wanted to hear. And she was really turned off. I mean, majorly turned off. And then I ran to all my party animal friends because I didn't want them to go to hell. And I told them all about Jesus, and they ran from me. And then I went to my family and telling them all about Jesus, and they were like, well, he was a witch, and he's not anymore. And he was Buddhist, and he's not anymore. So this is just a phase, he'll get over it. But finally, the final straw with them was, and you have to remember, all my party animal friends ran away from me, and my wife really was kind of keeping her distance because, she's like, you're like a priest around the house, praying over everything, and she couldn't stand it. And so we were at our Passover dinner with our family that I'd been doing since I was a baby. And we would go from different families, in the course of the various years. And here we were in my sister's home with all my family, mother and father, brother, sister, everybody, including my wife, my children. And I've only known the Lord maybe 6 months. And the little knowledge that I have, as they're doing the Passover Seder and going through the various different things in the Haggadah, I'm explaining in between Yeshua in the various different things. Look, there's Yeshua in the matzah. Don't you see it? Look, he was pierced for us. There's his stripes.
Wow.
See the
Nobody taught you that, though. Wow.
I had learned it, Liliana, from the short period of time because I didn't explain this to you, but after I came to know the Lord with Joe Cohn that night, he said that I needed to get into a Bible-believing church. I didn't know anything from Messianic. And he wasn't involved with any Messianic congregation. So he said, you need to do that. And he said, and you need to do this and whatever, read the Bible. And so I was given a phone number. I called up this pastor, that's all I knew to do, and asked him when they were meeting. He said Friday night. He didn't say Shabbat, but, and I put 2 and 2 together. I went there, and they were praying, but then they went into this strange language when they were praying. And I wanted to run out the door because I thought it was something demonic. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. And he invited me afterwards because I stayed. I didn't run out the door. And he said to me, I want to invite you after services on Sunday morning to my house for lunch. And after that, we're going to be going to a freshwater stream on a friend's property on their farm, and we're going to be doing baptisms. And if you would like, you can bring your bathing suit and get baptized. I called up my friend, the president of the chapter in White Plains, and I said, this is great. Is there any more dinners like this or anything? Because it's wonderful. Met all these businessmen, and we're all excited and excited for the Lord. And he said, no, there's no more dinners till next month, but there's a breakfast in another chapter. So he said, I'll meet you there, and, we'll go. So I went. It was the same Saturday. So you got to remember, it was a Tuesday night I got saved, and then it was a Friday night I went to that service when they were praying in tongues, and then it was a Saturday morning that I went to a breakfast. It's all in the same week. And so Saturday morning, I'm there, and the president from that chapter comes up to me and says, I heard you were Jewish. Congratulations. This is wonderful. You're a completed Jew, a Messianic believer. This is great. I was afraid because I thought they were going to persecute me like I was when I was a little boy.
Yeah.
And then he said, have you been baptized in the Holy Spirit? I said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, just wait till the end of the meeting and see. And so I waited, and this guy gave his testimony, and he was, and we had the breakfast, and then he said, and anyone who wants to be baptized in the Holy Spirit, come forward. So I ran up. I didn't even really know why I was running up. And 5 men, including him, the president of that chapter, and the president of the first chapter, I was with my friend, Norman Sherry, he was laying hands on me, and they were praying. And all of a sudden they're saying, there it is, there it is. And I'm thinking, what are they, crazy? What are they talking about? And I felt this bubbling, this humming, this thing going on in my stomach. And it rumbled, and all of a sudden it popped out of my mouth. I spoke for 2 hours in every language I could possibly think of. It sounded like Chinese, Russian, Italian, you name it, maybe even Hebrew. I don't know, but it wasn't languages that I knew.
Wow.
And I spoke in these languages. I was shaking like a leaf. And the president, Norman Sherry, looks at me and he's laughing at me, and I'm like, what? This is crazy. I can't even keep control. I'm shaking. And then came Sunday. Sunday I went to the service, totally foreign to me, and then went to the freshwater stream, baptized, all of this in 1 whole week.
Wow, that's a lot.
And a lot.
The transformation, big time. Awesome.
And then I was learning about different things, in the church, in the Bible studies, and that's how I learned about Jesus and the Passover. Well, that was the final straw of my family. They said, that's it. We put up with you until now. You can't come to any more family gatherings. None. And so I was shunned.
Wow.
And I said, no more. My party animal friend said, no more. My wife said, no more. And so for the most part, the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International businessmen became my family.
Wow.
And I went to the following dinner by myself, and there was a man there talking about healing. I knew nothing about that. Talking about the supernatural gifts of God. And this man was very gifted. He would even get prescription labels off of bottles in his mind's eye and be able to tell someone, you're taking this prescription. Who is this, please? Come on up. And they would get healed.
Wow. Wow.
His name was Austin Miles. He was a ringmaster. I don't know if he's still alive, but he was a ringmaster, and he did things in Hollywood, different things. But he was also a healing evangelist.
Wow.
And what an accurate word of God. So we were sitting at the table after dinner. I have my hands clasped, and he's leading us into forgiving people that have done us wrong.
Wow.
So obviously I'm forgiving my parents, the wild party animal friends, all this. And after I'm forgiving all of them, and anyone that I could think says, and even childhood memories, ask Holy Spirit to bring to mind childhood memories that you could forgive them. And I did, and all of a sudden I remembered those children that had, persecuted me and were my friends, and I remembered their names, and I spoke out their names, and I forgave them. And right after that, as soon as I finished, even though my hands were clasped together, involuntarily my hands shot out in front of me. And for 10 minutes, I felt like water and electricity flowing out of my arms all the way out of my fingertips. And I couldn't even figure out what was going on. It was so crazy. And afterwards, I told Austin Miles when we were done after the service, after the meeting, and he said to me, that was the same way I received my anointing from God and what I do now. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
And so I had a whirlwind, Liliana, experience in knowing Yeshua, my Messiah, as compared to when I've talked to other people and how they, experienced coming to Him and getting baptized in the Holy Spirit, all of these things. For me, it just put me through a crash course.
Wow,
and
really?
Unfortunately, my wife ran off with another guy, and so within less than a year, I was a single parent with a 4-year-old son, 2-year-old son, part-time single parent, and not knowing what to do. And basically, the full gospel businessmen came around me. They were my family.
Wow.
They loved me. My church was my family.
It's good that you had those people to be there for you. Yeah. So now, coming forward in time after going through that difficult situation, besides the full gospel businessman being there for you, you were aware that Yeshua was there with you all the time, helping you go through things in life. What I'm sensing is that God did a lot of healing and helped you through those rough things. He brought a lot of healing from your past, where you were hurt, and then He helped you go through that tough time. And now there's a special gift God's given you to bring healing into people's lives. Can you share a little bit what God is doing with your life? How He's blessed you. You've in turn, God has been using you to be a person that can bring God's healing into their lives. Can you share about that?
By all means. Because to fast forward, I had 2 Messianic congregations in New York State, became a Messianic rabbi. That's a big jump, but it's the truth. I remarried. My wife, after 12 years, went to be with the Lord. She died. We were celebrating a conference in Dakota in Cleveland, and God gave me a tremendous healing ministry, prophetic ministry, apostolic ministry, where we traveled all over the world, into 12 different nations. I've seen the Lord move miraculously here, even in Israel. People being healed from cancer, from blindness, from coming out of wheelchairs. God doing it all. God moving mightily and miraculously. A lot of times me not even having to lay hands on someone. It's just His glory manifested, and they are being healed. They are being delivered. They are being set free. Leading many people to the Lord. Just came back from a wonderful month-long trip to Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, and saw many, many, many people healed, hundreds of people healed, set free, coming to know Yeshua as their Messiah, coming to be delivered. And it was a very fruitful trip. For a whole month, we got to go to 10 different cities in the 3 countries, and just had fantastic meetings, even with full gospel businessmen meetings.
That's great. Can you share like a personal, maybe a couple of personal healings that you felt, that might be a blessing for people to hear?
Well, by all means. And I just want to quickly give our website. Please, if you're interested in more information or to get our monthly newsletter, you can go to celebratemessiah.com. That's celebratemessiah.com. We would love to send you our newsletter. We would love to be able to be in touch with you. Any questions you might have, we'd love to be able to answer them. And one of the special ones I can remember, Liliana, I wasn't in a service. I was asked to come to minister at someone's home, and this man was 79 years old. He was told by his cardiologist that a quarter part of his heart was functioning, and he had a year to live.
Wow.
And he barely could walk. I prayed and asked the Lord to impart to him a brand new heart. And the man was dancing with his wife in the living room.
Wow.
And then he went back to his cardiologist, and his cardiologist said to him, I can't explain it. I have no answers for you, but you have the heart of a 25-year-old.
Wow. Awesome. That's amazing.
His wife was walking with 2 canes. She had extreme 24 hours a day pain and could get no relief. Same night, God healed her and blessed her. He blessed her in a very strange way. She could not hardly walk, and he told her to get down on the carpet. There was a carpet that was red on the floor. He said that this was his fire carpet for the night, and if she would roll around with him on the floor, he would heal her completely. Well, she said that the Lord told her that before I said it. So she had a vision of doing it before I told her. She got down on the floor, rolling around on the carpet, and began to be completely and totally healed, where the next day she was in Jerusalem walking around for 7 hours straight with no pain,
Oh, wow.
and walking with her husband who had the brand new heart.
Wow. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Only God can do things like that. Yeah. Back issues are really delicate, and they're really hard to have a full healing. That's just amazing. That's just amazing. So I know that you also have a gift with the shofar, and people have actually been healed when you blow the shofar.
God had me blow the shofar. Even I was on It's Supernatural, and we made a CT, and it was me blowing the shofar and making proclamations and prayers, and people were coming out of wheelchairs, blind eyes were being opened, deaf ears were being opened, just for me blowing the shofar. Even this, Liliana, people that had surgically implanted titanium steel rods in their backs or parts of their bodies, and they were getting set free.
Wow.
What happened to the metal? But they said, I couldn't do the somersault before because I was so stiff with this 15-inch rod in my back, and now I'm doing the somersault.
Wow.
After the shofar was blown.
Wow. Wow. There's something about when you talk about Israel that things happen. And I know the scripture says that God called Israel to be blessed and to be a blessing. And he didn't do that with any other country. There's a special calling, for lack of a better word, that God has put on Israel. Can you take just a few seconds to kind of, I wish we had a little bit more time, to share what your thoughts are on that?
Sure. You can read a book, Why Israel is Supernatural, which you can contact us and we'll be happy to make arrangements to get it to you. And the reality is that Israel is God's land. It is supernatural, and there is no way, indisputably, there is no way able to refute that it is God's land, and it is God's people, and the Lord has a plan, and it will be accomplished, and Israel is part of it from the beginning to the end. And no one, replacement theology or anything else, can refute that God is and will bless Israel. And Jerusalem is the city of the great king, and it's the apple of his eye.
Awesome. So if Israel is important, then you're saying that the Jewish people are important to God. And
100%.
Yeah.
Replacement theology and the fact that the Jewish people are done away with according to Constantinian and beyond doctrine is false and a lie from the pit of hell. And don't let any Jewish people think that there's a dual covenant between Abraham and God, because there isn't. There's only one way. One way to the Father is through the Son. And the Son is Yeshua Mashiach. Yeshua HaMashiach. He is the one that you have to turn to. He is the one that you have to have for your ability to go to be with the Father.
Yes.
And there is no other way.
Yes.
Let no one lie to you. Let no one tell you any other falsity, because it is the only way. It's through Yeshua.
Yes. That's the truth. We really appreciate you sharing that. And he's been waiting for our Jewish people to recognize him as the Jewish Messiah that he is.
Amen.
Yes. And he's always available to us, and he's been faithful to Israel, and he will continue to be faithful, as you said, until he comes back to his return. I don't feel that we're too far from that time when Yeshua, the Messiah, is coming, and he will come to the Mount of Olives, like it says in the scriptures. So we
I
are.
want you to know, Liliana, that your listeners, for those that the miracle, as this program was being recorded and will be going out, many millions, not thousands, but millions, I believe God is saying, are being healed, are being touched, and are being blessed and delivered. And you can influence.
Thank you. I don't know if you have your shofar, but could you blow your shofar and we are going to finish?
Let me see.
If that's possible.
Hold on. Let's find out where I put it. Just a second. Yes, it's right here. Okay. And yes, I will. I'd be honored to. And the miraculous, with God's supernatural glory, pours out on the people. Please let us know at celebratemessiah.com. And tell Liliana, she wants to hear too. It would be a blessing for her also.
Thank you for listening to Tikvah Radio Show, the voice of hope. If you have been blessed by this program and want to join us in sharing with others the hope of Yeshua HaMashiach, a gift of any amount will be appreciated. You can donate and contact us on our website at tikvahradio.com. Once again, that's TIKVAH radio.com. Thank you for joining us, and God bless.